Hey everybody, and welcome to week 3 of class. So you've got a good taste for what the homework's about from last week and basically how the chapters flow. So this week we're going to talk about chapter 4. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail, but if you look at your schedule, it shows exactly what's coming up. In the whole scheme of things, this week is a little bit light, so here's what I'm going to suggest you do is to take a little time to learn from the homework that you had done last week, particularly on chapter 3, and get a feel for how that works. I think this was your first taste of doing some of the more typical finance problems, which ultimately normally require you to have an understanding of the concepts and the ideas that were presented and where those concepts and ideas are used in relationship to formulas to solve specific problems. So I'm going to make a suggestion to you. If you are taking notes as you read the chapter, and I strongly suggest you do that, don't copy down all the formulas. The formulas are there. You can always go back and get them. But get familiar with the terms and where they're used and what situations they're used in and what formulas then are associated with it, even to the point of maybe even writing down the page number that the formula's on. I think that could be very helpful to you. Second thing is, and I think a few people struggled with this, so I'm assuming everybody has some issues with it, is that you need to calculate from the information given in the problems. You need to calculate particular numbers first before you can actually solve the final number that's being asked for. And so what I'm going to suggest to you here is there's a couple of things to look at. So start with the end. Typically something that's being asked has a specific answer to it and requires a formula, but you may not have all the components of the formula that you need for the final answer. You need to calculate, you need to come up with those components, and so you need to take some of the information and figure out how to figure all that out. Okay, so what gets confusing, I know sometimes, is like, well, I don't remember what that is, or how do I figure that out? So one of the couple things is, as I mentioned, take notes. The second thing is, in the text, there's a couple ways to go back and look up specific topics. So I'm going to try to get to the text here real quick. Bear with me one second. And the first thing I want you to look at is something called the list of terms, which is at the end of every chapter. And in the list of terms shows all the important calculations and things that you're going to walk away needing to understand to actually do the homework. So it's not a bad idea just to review this real quick before you start the homework problems. But if you need to go back and refer to it, this is a good place to start. So, let's say we wanted to learn something about the ratio of fixed asset turnover. If I click on that, it'll take me right to that section of where it's being talked about, and then we can consider it being part of the asset utilization ratios. And I'll even click on that, and it gives you some terminology in there. And as you flip through, at least you know the area to look at to see if you can come up with the appropriate formulas for it. Okay, that's one way to do it. The other thing to look at is you can do search, and that's a part of the functionality of this this eText as well. So if I click on search, I can search specific terms. I did one first. I should have. Okay, so let's say we want to look up inventory turnover as a term. So if I do a search on that, it gives me 24 different results. And seeing as we were in chapter 3, we could take a look there and click on that, and that'll take me to the appropriate definition. Okay, I'll go back and look at ratio analysis, and it gives some examples of it. So those are things that you can go back and look at to kind of get you into the right spot of the text, so maybe you can find the answers for what you're looking for. So I know that can be a little bit confusing, and it requires you to kind of go back and really understand what these specific terms mean and how you calculate them, because you probably have to calculate some of them before you can actually do the final answer formula. Okay, I hope that helps, and if it doesn't, certainly let me know. I don't want anybody to struggle with this too much, so reach out to me and we'll work through it. Okay? All right, so moving on to Chapter 4. A lot of students like Chapter 4 because it starts to, whether you have a career in finance or not, the higher up the food chain you go in management world, the chances are pretty good you're going to be doing something called financial forecasting. And certainly in various aspects of my career, I've done a lot of financial forecasting, putting together plans. So it's really, really important that you understand what goes into this. It's something where finance meets the strategy building of the company, basically. Okay, so our objectives for this chapter will be to recognize that financial forecasting is an essential part of the strategic growth of the firm. It puts the ideas that you have for the strategic growth of the firm into financial terms, and they're very important that you kind of come to grips with that, so that everybody understands what the impact is you're expecting to have from the different choices of strategy that you make. There's 3 financial statements you use for forecasting, and I'm going to give you a hint. It's not exactly the same as the ones you learned about in Chapter 2, but it's a derivative of those. So take a look out for that. Make sure you understand what those are. Know that the percent of sales method may be used for forecasting on a less precise basis. A lot of times people will do that just because, to be perfectly honest with you, sometimes coming up with some more exact numbers can be very time consuming and not necessarily all that perfect anyway. So a lot of times, for the purposes of doing forecasting in an expedited way, you use percentage sales as a forecasting method. And it'll make sense when you read about it. Explain why the various methods of forecasting enable the firm to determine the amount of new funds required in advance. One of the reasons you do financial forecasting is you go hat in hand to the CFO of the corporation or the company or the enterprise that you're working for, and you say, I need money and I need funds to make this plan work. And so guess what? They're going to say, how much and what do we get for it? I mean, those are real basic questions, and that's how a lot of the plans are evaluated within an organization. That's very typical. Understand the process of forecasting forces the firm to consider seasonal and other effects on cash flow. And cash flows, as we've learned in Chapter 2, and we will continue to talk about, is kind of the lifeblood of the business. It tells you exactly how things are going. Try to understand how that is taken into effect when we actually do forecasting. I think you're going to like this chapter. Go through it. It's not the most difficult chapter, which is good, because I want you to circle back and go through Chapter 3 homework and kind of understand what you did right and what you did wrong, and try to learn from your mistakes. I think it's a really important element of the homework assignments that we do. And it'll certainly help you prepare for upcoming tests. Okay, well, that's it for this week. And if you have any questions, as always, let me know. Either send me an email or send me an email with 3 times you can meet in the virtual office, and we will meet there and go through it, which quite frankly is often going to be what we have to do for us to help you understand whatever it is that you're asking a question about. Okay, so that's it. Good luck, and let me know how it goes, and let me know if you have any questions.